Hey everyone, Mitch coming in, starting things off for spoiler season, not in the Commander's Quarter studio, as you can tell. Welcome to the show. So things have started off with a bang for Murders at Karlov Manor, which is probably pretty, on point, because, yeah, bang, on point, Murders at Karlov Manor. Yeah, and this commander is going to be doing some murdering at the table. So with all that said, let's get into this gross commander. So we've got Judith, Carnage Connoisseur. That's right, Judith is back and at it in Rakdos again. Not surprising, I didn't expect Judith to change her ways and be like, yes, now I'm in Selesnya. I just changed my ways completely, and I'm like, let's go grow some plants. No. Judith's like, no, let's just murderate everything. A 3/4 Human Shaman for 3 black and a red, so more expensive than previous Judith. Again, that was 3 mana. This is 5. I believe it was 3. Whenever you cast into a sorcery spell, choose 1. That spell gains Death Touch and Lifelink, or create a 2/2 red imp creature token with when this creature dies, deals 2 damage to each opponent. Okay, so, I think as Eddie basically said, I did not have this on my bingo card as something that could potentially replace like a Fire Song and Sunspeaker or be like a competition for it, because my goodness is this crazy. Now that second part is nice and that can be kind of like your finisher, but that first part is insane. Yeah, okay, so yeah, you can get a 2/2 imp and that's nice when it dies. Pings all your opponents. Again, that's 6 damage in total all of your opponents when that gets taken out. That's great. But yeah, Death Touch Lifelink to your instants and sorceries is absurd. Absolutely crazy. Any single instance of damage on your opponent's creatures is bye-bye. Bye-bye from any instant or sorcery that you have. And also on top of that, you gain life. So again, let's just say, hypothetically, that there are certain spells out there in Magic that maybe, I don't know, cost like a single mana, and they just happen to deal with like all of your opponent's creatures, one damage, just 1 damage to all your opponent's creatures. Again, that's fairly costed, right? But with this commander, it's like, oh, okay, so there's like, let's say 20 creatures on the board that your opponents have. 1 mana, board wipe. Again, assuming no indestructible, regenerate, or whatnot, but you typically complete board wipe, and you just gain 20 life for 1 mana. And again, there are plenty, an absurd amount of spells that can do just that. Maybe not nearly as efficiently. I mean, there's like 5, 6, 7, whatever they are at 1 mana, but still there's more at 2, 3, whatever there are. There are so many ways for you to have an absurd amount of one-sided board wipes that your opponent's heads are going to be spinning because they're not going to be knowing what to do against this. Yeah, you play this, you're going to have a target on your back because this puts a target on all of your opponent's creatures and makes it so you can very easily deal with them and gain an absurd amount of life, and of course take advantages of gaining life as well. And then, of course, obviously, again, like the other side, hey, sure, if you happen to want to just spell sling and cast and get some creatures out too, that also ping your opponents and also benefit from, damage doubling effects, damage tripling effects, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Yeah, you get benefits from that too. So yes, this is an absurdly cool commander to start things off. I love this brand new version of Judith. I know many players out there like the old version too, but this one's got some potential, got some claws to it, and oh my goodness, I'm gonna be scared when I see this on their side of the table and be like, oh, don't kill my creatures with your 1 mana littles. Oh no, you did it again. So yeah, this can be a pretty oppressive commander depending on how it's built. Regardless, on this episode, I'm gonna teach you how I would build around it on a budget and outside of a budget. 9 cards each to start. I believe it's 9 each. Regardless, the budget buys the price of your picks. If you want to pick up some of those cards early, because yeah, I can see this commander being quite popular, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. Now, with all that said, let's jump into the budget buys. So first off with a budget buys, 8 cents for this card. There are quite a few of these kinds of cards out there. They are very, very, very budget friendly and very, very deadly with this commander. Blazing Volley, a very simple card. Sorcery for a single red mana. 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. Again, does not touch your creatures, which is very important because if it did, your creatures would be dying, and we don't want that, do we? No, we want our opponents to just just fear a 1-mana card that is basically useless in Commander, essentially, for the most part. With this Commander, it's absurd. Again, your opponents have, say, 20 creatures in play, which is completely reasonable in a game of Commander, maybe even more if you're playing against, say, Timmy Tokens over there. But, yeah, just destroying every single one of your opponent's creatures and gaining that much life for 1 mana. Absolutely absurd. So, yeah, your deck can be chock full of just this kind of a card, and your opponents are going to be like, oh, gosh, oh, no, oh, not another one. Moving on. Mizium Mortars. This one has some flexibility to it. Sorcery for 2 mana, 4 damage to target creature you don't control, or you can overload it for 6. So again, if you need that individualized 4 damage to a creature to take it out, again, it doesn't really matter how much damage it is, right? Essentially, as long as your commander's in play, though it might be nice to have a little bit of flexibility, like a card like this, in case your commander is dealt with, so you can still deal with some things. So it's not just like 1 damage, does nothing. Mizium Mortars can take out a creature, gain 4 life, cool. Or, hey, 4 damage to every single one of your opponent's creatures, basically, again, gaining 4 times as much life. So there is some extra utility, I guess, to having cards that might cost a little bit more, again, 6 mana instead of 1, essentially, to take all your opponent's creatures. That being said, again, if your opponents have 20 creatures in play, congratulations, you just gained 80 life. So yeah, this is like Rakdos Spellslinger life gain craziness. Next up. Even an old janky card like Volcanic Spray can see play here. Source for 2 mana, 1 damage each creature without flying in each player. Keep in mind, that does obviously affect your creatures, though, of course, you might have shenanigans to ensure that, well, if my creatures die, they can come back with some Feign Death type effects, or maybe have indestructible creatures. But yes, this one also has flashback, so you can utilize it again. So keep in mind that, hey, this is just a basically useless card in many decks, but this is a double board wipe for you to gain an absurd amount of life, thanks to this commander. But again, you have to utilize it in a very smart and thought out way. Speaking of which, Chain Reaction. Yeah, a card like this is pretty absurd. 4 mana sorcery, X damage each creature, where X the number of creatures on the battlefield. This one normally will just be able to take out basically every creature, so that Death Touch might not matter with something like this. Though again, it might be nice to have this, you know, just in your deck, just in case your commander is dealt with and you don't have that Death Touch aspect. That being said, it also gives you the potential to gain an absurd amount of life. Again, just keep in mind, hey, okay, your opponents have 20 creatures in play. Let's say you've got, okay, let's just say in total, you have 20 total, including your creatures. Okay, just keep the math easy. So we cast this, 20 damage to every single creature, and there are 20 creatures. That's 20 times 20, that's 400 damage total. That's 400 life gained. Good luck to your opponents taking you out. They need to take you out with commander damage, most likely, or some other alternative way to take you out, because just playing a 4-mana spell to gain 400 life is padding your life total to an amount that is absurd, and you can stick around for quite some time with your opponents ever doing anything to you. So yeah, a card like this, even though it might wipe your own board, yeah, it's going to be worth it. Also, though, hey, we might just build in some indestructible things. Black has ways to do that. And in some creatures, too, like Yahenni Undying Partisan, which can be another crazy card for this deck. 2/3 Aether and Vampire with haste. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1 counter on it. Sacrifice another creature, Yahenni gains indestructible until end of turn. So Yahenni is a crazy good card in this deck, potentially because, well, you can sacrifice creatures, which is very nice, again, when you have the potential to make those little imps that you can have die and deal damage to your opponent, so that's nice. You have some creature fodder potentially for Yahenni, and when you do so, it becomes indestructible, meaning that it's going to be sticking around. And also, of course, it takes advantage of your opponent's creatures dying, and again, let's say they have 20 of them. Congratulations, you just got 20 counters on Yahenni, making it absolutely massive. And yeah, it's sticking around through that board wipe, and it is going to be able to swing at your opponents freely since all their creatures were just dealt with. So yeah, utilizing some indestructible creatures, especially ones like this that can be very, very potent, can be absolutely massive. Next up, I will mention this, and thank you, Eddie, for looking this up for me. Marauding Blight Priest. This is a card that came to mind right away when I saw this card. I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, life gain with your instant sorceries, separate instances of life gain. No, hold up there. Unfortunately, it's not exactly how it works. So like, like Blazing Volley deals 1 damage each creature. It's actually going to not register those as separate instances of damage when it comes to the actual life link. So it's going to be just, hey, you gain 20 life in total instead of like you gained 1 life 20 times. So again, whenever you gain life, each one loses 1 life. You're gaining 20 life as a 1 bunch, essentially. So it's just drain for 1. That being said, of course, like if you're utilizing like storm effects, like a grape shot, that would work with this, so keep that in mind. And we'll talk about another card, well, right now, that is just underneath $1 currently. Sanguine Bond, enchantment for 5 mana. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Yeah, this is an absurd card for this kind of a deck. It is an absurd card for this kind of a strategy. If Fire Song could get its hands on this, it would. It can't, though. Judith can. So yeah, being able to say, hey, okay, I cast my Blazing Volley. I dealt 20 damage. or in total, right, to all those creatures. I took them out. And also, you. I don't like you. So I just destroyed all your creatures for 1 mana, and also I'm draining you for 20. So yes, this is an absurd effect in this kind of deck. You can also take advantage of your life gain with cards like Well of Lost Dreams. Artifact for 4 mana. Whenever you gain life, you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gain. If you do draw X cards, this is pretty absurd in this kind of a deck. This can make sure that your hand is chock full of even more damage spells. So yeah, again, Blazing Volley, 1 mana. And then you're like, oh, cool. Okay, I don't have enough mana to draw 20 cards, but I'll draw 5. Sure, tap for 5. So basically, board wipe your opponent's creatures, gain an absurd amount of life, and also draw 5 cards for like 6 mana in total. What's not to love about that, at least for you? Next up, Falkenrath Noble. Now, this is one more so than Marauding Blight Priest that can really come in handy with this kind of attack. Whenever it or other creature dies, target player lose 1 life, you gain 1 life, kind of like a Blood Artist essentially, but more expensive. Not when it comes to price, when it comes to actual mana value. That being said, still very, very effective, obviously. Take out your opponent's creatures and drain them very effectively, very efficiently. Also play into those life gain that you already have, like the Sanguine Bond, that kind of stuff. This one, I believe, would actually proc off of, again, Blazing Volley, your opponent's creatures, Marauding Blight Priest in play. That would work very well in tandem with this, so do keep that in mind. That being said, yeah, absurd effects like this can come in really handy. And also keep in mind, again, when your imps are dying, this can help that too. Next up, speaking of that, Ember Maw Hellion can help us out in multiple ways. A 4/5 Hellion with Trample. If another red source you control deal damage to a permanent player, it deals that much damage plus 1 to that permanent player instead. So yeah, I guess if you want an extra damage on all of your spells, again, that's just more life gained. Again, if they have Death Touch, it doesn't really matter how much damage is dealt. But again, hey, gain extra life essentially from every single one of them. Blazing Volley example, that'd be 40 life instead of 20, which is huge. Also on top of that, of course, yeah, when those imps are dying now, they are dealing 9 damage in total. Again, 3 per opponent, basically lightning bolting your opponents, which is pretty fantastic. So make sure you're keeping that in mind. And also make sure you're keeping in mind Aetherflux Reservoir. Yeah, this is a crazy good card. Artifact for 4. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you cast this turn. Again, if you're going to go like a Spellslinger model with this kind of a commander, you can do some pretty crazy things and gain a lot of life anyways. You're also going to be just gaining an absurd amount of life regardless. Again, just we talked about earlier, like a 400 easy life gain with Chain Reaction. Very simple, very effective. And of course, pay 50 life, deals 50 damage to any target. Yeah, you basically just need to cast 1 of your like mini board wipe spells that just gains you an absurd amount of life, and all of a sudden you can hold the entire board hostage by saying, don't do anything to me or you're gone, because you are at 40 or whatnot, and I have a way to deal 50 to you quite easily. So if you try to do anything against me, you are gone. And of course, it might not matter at a certain point, again, if you're just gaining, again, like 150 life, which is pretty easy with this kind of a commander, to say, you're all just gone. Goodbye. Okay, I win. Thank you. Congratulations, me. Next up, Sulfur Mayhem Dominus. This one's good for a couple of reasons. 5/4 Phyrexian. If a source you control deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a opponent controls, it deals double that damage instead. So basically, again, double up on your life gain effects with your spells, and also double up on the damage dealt by your imps too. So instead of dealing 2, it's 4, and that can add up a lot throughout the game. On top of that, of course, pay 1 Phyrexian Red, so basically 1 in 4 life. And you've got the life to give, obviously, in this kind of a deck. Discard 2 cards, get an indestructible counter on it. Very simple, very easy, very effective. And yeah, again, now this can survive any of your board wipes, essentially, to say, I'm just sticking around through all this. So yeah, being indestructible is huge. One that is not indestructible, but still very good with this deck is Torbrand. If a red source you control deal damage to an opponent or opponent they control, that much plus 2 instead. So again, your imps dealing 4, your spells dealing extra 2. And again, like with a Blazing Volley, hey, congratulations. Instead of dealing 1 to a creature, it's dealing lightning bolt damage. And now all of a sudden, instead of gaining, again, in our example, 20 life, you're gaining 60, which can make a big impact. And speaking of big impact, City on Fire, oh my goodness, yeah, a damage tripler. Who knew that would be good? Wow, Wizards, that is so cool. Yeah. Okay, Convoke. So basically this one, you can actually utilize those imps to help get it out. So you could even have a free version of this, essentially just putting it right into play. Source you can deal damage to a opponent player, deals trip instead. Yeah, for all the reasons already listed, this is crazy good, making you gain triple the amount of life that you'd be gaining, essentially. And also, of course, your imps now are going to be dealing 6, so that's pretty absurd. Next up, Purpose God of the Forge. You can also deal damage with your imps in a different way. Really, it's quite nice. Whenever another creature is about under control, 2 damage to each opponent. So basically, your imps are like, hey, I'm coming in. Boom. 6 damage right away off the bat. Again, 2 for each opponent's faces, and then when they die, the exact same thing. So this can pair really well again with like a Henny to ensure that you are going to be dealing up that damage quite quickly. Moving on, Drivnod, Carnage Dominus, and I guess I should have mentioned Purpose, also indestructible. This one again, a Dominus, so again can become indestructible. Pay Phyrexian Black, exile 3 creature cards in your graveyard to do that. Very easy to do. The creature dying causes a trigger ability, a permanent control trigger, triggers this whole time. Yeah, again, works very well with like Blood Artist effects, obviously, but also, yeah, just with your imps, they have that death trigger, so you're like, okay, let's just double that up. 4 damage each of you, and again, if you've got those doublers, triplers, whatever they are, even more so that's pretty crazy. Of course, Blasphemous Act. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a very good card with this, very good card with Fire Song and Sunspeaker. Sorcery for 9 mana, but it's always got to be 1, essentially. 1 less sketch for each creature on the battlefield, 13 damage each creature. Again, this is one that would wipe out your own board, so keep that in mind, but if you've got indestructible creatures or a way to get your commander back with a Feign Death type effect, that's fine, and also it's going to be worth it anyways, because, again, with 20 creatures on the board, that's what, 20 times 13? That's an absurd amount of life gain. 260, if I'm correct on that? So yeah, just being able to pay 1 mana to gain 260 life, eat your heart out mono white decks. And then, of course, like Veto the Dusk Rose, Thorn of the Dusk Rose. Basically, exact same thing as a Sanguine Bond. Having multiple of these in the deck can be very, very good. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. You can also give your creatures lifelink if you really want to do that. And also, of course, I mean, Exquisite Blood. This combos with Sanguine Bond and Veto, so utilizing this, and actually with Running Blight Priest too. They had a lot of things. This comes with a ham sandwich, essentially. Whenever opponent loses life, you gain that much life. Yeah, this is just a good thing to pair with this deck regardless, because, of course, you have plenty of ways to deal out damage, including those imps. Every single time one of those imps dies, you're just gaining 6 life as well, because your opponents are losing life. Yeah, this can become quite good, quite effective. Yeah, just a very good card in many ways. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear from you. So what are your thoughts on the brand new Judith? What kind of a deck would you build around it? Are there any cards that I didn't mention on this episode that you think I should have mentioned, either in budget buys or price of your picks? And speaking of those, if you are interested in any of those cards, make sure you pick some of them up in the card list link below. Again, when a new exciting commander like this one is spoiled, sometimes card prices go up quite quickly when players are excited about it. So yeah, make sure you check that out. Of course, make sure you're staying tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.